Thanks for being here too.
All right. So we're going to talk about kind of know what you're getting into, and these couple of verses can apply to a lot of things. So why don't you read them and give us your first thoughts?
All right. We're looking at Luke 14, verse 28 and 29. For which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he's laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who observe it begin to ridicule him. We had a neighbor that was exactly like this. He was a farmer, and some farmers don't really make a lot of money. And if their crops fail or something happens, they can't do anything beyond that year because they don't have the money. Well, we had a distant neighbor who started to build a barn, and I think it sat there for like 10 years with just the concrete down. And everybody, whenever you go past, you go like, man, that guy didn't figure things out. He wasn't prepared. He didn't have his money set to go. And here it's talking about a tower, but there's different buildings and projects. You get the architect and you lay out a plan and you figure out what that cost is going to be, because it's not just going to come to you if you don't have the money. And it's so important to plan. And this is right here encourages Christians to think ahead and to plan ahead. It's so clear. And yet we find people that they don't count the cost of following Jesus or making their plans happen. So what do you got to say?
Well, you can look at it. If you broaden that up a little bit, you think about your reputation. And let's say you're going to commit to something. Let's say you're going to volunteer for something, or you're going to make a commitment to, hey, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to help with this, I'm going to help with that. It's important that you follow through with that, because otherwise you're going to be looked at in a very negative light. When you make a commitment, I've always thought, ever since I was a little kid, I took my commitments very seriously. So don't just go make that commitment where those are just empty words. Before you say what you're going to do or what your commitment is, make sure you're ready to complete it, and make sure you're ready to see that task completed, whatever it is.
Yeah, we don't realize it. I was just thinking about something this morning as a young Christian, and man, I was dumb. You learn to walk with Christ, and it takes some while to develop a genuine walk that has a little depth to it. But so many Christians say, oh yeah, I'll do that. Oh, I'll do this. I'll do that. And the list gets gigantic, and they don't follow through on that list. They get overwhelmed by their own promises. And early on in my Christian walk, I realized it's going to be really important, because you develop integrity. What you say you're going to do, you do it, even if it costs you. When in my marriage, what I say, I'm going to do. And if I have to really be inconvenienced, so what? I work harder to do that. And I think business-wise, but both you and I, we learn to run businesses. If you don't have an integrity to who you are, it's like nobody's going to trust you. Nobody's going to think, oh, he's going to follow through on that. I remember my main foreman, when I first hired him, I said, you lied to me, and you can lose your job over it. And, that was a very clear, foundation that we set. And I remember one time, 3-4 years later, he kind of comes to me with hat in hand and real quiet. And he said, I didn't tell you the truth. And he expected that he could be fired over that, because I want to know about things that happen I don't want them covered up. I want to fix them. And he brought it to my attention, and it was soon enough where we could do something about it. And I mean, it worked out smoothly, but he knew from the outset that I had an expectation and I was going to follow through. Now, I forgave that, as Christians often do, but you have to be serious about how you lead people, and that goes from husband and wife, and how you deal with down to earth issues, fathers, mothers, all of that. If you kind of shout at somebody and one of your kids, and you never follow through on that, we're going to set you in timeout because you've crossed the line. If you never follow through on that, guess what? That kid's going to go like, don't pay attention. We'll just keep going the way we want. And when there's integrity, it's like there's a foundation that's solid, and it's so important that we plan ahead and then we stick to our word. Don't volunteer for something that you don't think you're going to be able to fit in. And if you do say, yes, I'll do that. I'll help with this ministry or that ministry. If it's a one-time thing, you're there because it's so important, not just the issue at hand, but to have integrity so that others can trust you and you reflect Jesus that way.
Yeah, for sure. If you make a commitment and someone is depending on you because you gave your word for something, it's you're trapping someone if you let them down and don't, you blatantly don't keep your commitment. We all make mistakes and mess things up, and we all let each other down, but that's not supposed to be on purpose, or that's not supposed to be because of a choice that we made. Well, I decided not to do it. No, I don't know. That's a bad one to me, because now what you're doing to that person or that group is that they were depending on you to do something, and now they're totally stuck. Okay, what are we going to do now? This part of this project or whatever was supposed to be completed. Now it's the last minute and we don't have anyone. It's too late, and it's like you affect so many people when you don't keep your commitment. It's like being late. The thing about being late, if you're 30 minutes late, that's something that really annoys me because you're spending my time. I get to determine how I spend my time, not you. And if you show up to a meeting late, and you've got a group of people in this meeting that are waiting for you, you don't get to spend everybody's time. That's a huge pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm certainly not perfect in those things, but it's just so important to develop a reflection of Christ. When you walk with the Lord Jesus, there needs to be integrity. There needs to be a consistency. And I think this count the cost idea with a tower, by the way, I don't think you're talking about Trump Tower, not that big a project. I mean, to do a project like that, you really have to know what you're doing and have to have a plan. Because I've seen some things happen where, they'll spend maybe $1 million on this and then they run out of money. That $1 million could have earned you a lot of interest in the bank. But you socked it away without a plan. It's so important to follow through and say, yes, I'm going to do this because you have the resources to do it, not because you just have a good idea and you want to go on with things. I don't know if I'm explaining it carefully enough.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. You got to pay attention to detail or you're going to get trapped.
Yeah. And people will mock you.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. You're putting your reputation right out there for everyone to see.
Yeah. And as a young Christian, I didn't realize that was going on. And I had to kind of wake up and, cause you start out, you just do your own thing and you don't realize, oh man, I'm affecting other people. And it's important to represent the Lord.
All right. Well, as always, Pastor, we thank you for your insight, and we will talk to you next time.
All righty.